My name is Elena Moore, and I'm 28 years old. I've always been the kind of person who quietly slips into rooms, smiles softly, helps clean up dishes no one remembers dirtying, and leaves without making much noise. Maybe that's why, for most of my life, my family treated me like I was invisible. But it wasn't always like that. There was a time when I was younger, when my mom would braid my hair every morning before school, humming some country tune under her breath while I chattered away about my teachers and playground drama. Back then, she called me her shadow sunshine. Then, something shifted. And I still don't know exactly when. I guess it started when my dad passed away. He died unexpectedly when I was 16. Heart attack. One minute we were eating spaghetti and watching reruns of Jeopardy, and the next, he was slumped over his plate. He didn't even finish his last bite. Everything changed after that. Mom checked out emotionally. My older sister, Jenna, became the favorite overnight. And I became furniture. Let me tell you about Jenna. She's 31 now. Tall, blonde, confident in that magnetic way that makes waiters flirt and strangers listen. She has that kind of laugh that turns heads at restaurants, the kind of laugh that makes people want to agree with her, even when she's cruel. And believe me, she can be cruel. Growing up, Jenna and I were never close. She used to roll her eyes when I talked about books, call me grandma when I stayed home to study instead of going to parties. But after Dad died, she took over. Helped Mom pay bills, drove her to appointments, even cooked sometimes. Everyone praised her like she was a saint. So maybe I was just the unnecessary one. Extra. By the time I was 22, I'd moved out. I'd worked through college with scholarships and 3 part-time jobs, barely making rent in a cheap apartment in Chicago. I never asked them for help. Never expected it either. So, I sent Mom flowers on her birthday every year. Called. I invited her to visit. She never did. Fast forward to this year. 2 weeks before Mom's 60th birthday. Called her like always. Her voice was tighter than usual. Elena, she said. Don't worry about the birthday this year. Just gonna be a small thing. You know, just close family. I blinked at the phone. Mom, I am close family. She didn't even pause. You know what I mean. Jenna's organizing it. Just a backyard thing. It'd be weird if you came all the way out here for that. Weird. I lived 1 state away. 3-hour drive. So I asked her point blank. Do you not want me there? And she sighed. Not the sigh of someone tired. The sigh of someone annoyed. I think it's just better this way, Elena. We don't want any awkwardness. Awkwardness. That's when it clicked. Jenna. This had Jenna's fingerprints all over it. It wasn't until later that I saw the Instagram posts. Jenna's boyfriend, Liam, had posted a boomerang of the decorations being set up. Big white tents, balloons, tables loaded with food. There were people. A lot of people. Not just family, friends, co-workers, even neighbors. So it wasn't a small thing. They lied to keep me away. I stared at that post until my eyes burned. I wasn't angry. Not really. I was used to being overlooked. But this time, it stung in a different way. Because it wasn't about forgetting. It was deliberate. That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling of my apartment, wondering what I had done to deserve this kind of coldness. I wasn't perfect, sure, but I'd never hurt them. I just worked hard, quietly built my career, kept to myself, and hoped that someday they'd be proud of me. They never even asked what I did for a living. Funny, right? Even funnier. I'm their boss's boss. I run a mid-sized investment firm with national clients. Our newest major partner. The marketing company where Jenna's boyfriend just started working as a project lead. I'd signed the partnership papers myself weeks before. But here's the twist no one saw coming. He didn't know my last name yet. My professional life was tied to my business name, E.M. Moore, not Elena. On paper I was initials and power suits. To them I was just Elena, the weird quiet one who reads a lot. So when Liam walked into our next quarterly strategy meeting and saw me sitting at the head of the table, everything changed. I still remember the way his mouth opened and didn't close for a full 10 seconds. He stood there frozen while everyone else greeted me respectfully. "Good morning, Ms. Moore." And then I smiled. "You must be Liam. Jenna's Liam, right?" He blinked. "Why, yes, ma'am." I nodded, standing to shake his hand. "Pleasure to finally meet you." And just like that, the pieces began to fall into place. He didn't say a word about my connection to Jenna in that meeting. But the look on his face told me everything. He knew. And he was terrified. Later that week, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. It was him. "Hi, Elena. I mean, Ms. Moore. I hope this isn't crossing any lines, but I wanted to talk." I let him talk. And what he said next. Let's just say, I finally learned why my family had cut me off all these years. And it wasn't just neglect. It was something worse. Before I continue, if you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, like they made you feel invisible on purpose, then you're not alone. Trust me. Drop a comment if you've been there. And if you want to know what Liam revealed, well, you'll want to hear what happened next. This story isn't over. Not by a long shot. Only grown-ups are watching because what's coming next? It's not sugar-coated. I didn't know what I expected when Liam asked to meet me in person. Maybe some kind of awkward apology. Maybe even an excuse about Jenna being overwhelmed or misunderstood. But what I got was truth. Cold, honest, gut-punching truth. We met at a quiet cafe a few blocks from my office. One of those cozy, under-the-radar places where you can have hard conversations without anyone overhearing. He was already seated when I walked in, staring down at his coffee like it held the answers to the universe. "Hi, Liam," I said, sliding into the booth across from him. He looked up quickly, as if startled I actually came. "Ms. Moore, I mean Elena. I really appreciate you agreeing to this. I know it's weird considering." He trailed off. "Considering that you're dating my sister," I offered flatly. "And that my entire family lied to me to keep me away from my own mother's birthday?" He winced. "Yeah, that." I wasn't planning to make it easy on him. But I also wasn't there to play games. "So," I said, folding my hands. "You said you wanted to talk. Go ahead." He looked around nervously, then leaned in. "Okay. So first, I want you to know I didn't know who you were when I took the job. Swear. I only found out after that meeting when I Googled your name. Then I saw a picture of you with a board member and I couldn't believe it." I raised a brow. "And?" He took a deep breath. "And after that, I asked Jenna about you. I told her I met someone named Elena Moore at the firm, and she went cold. Like really cold. That wasn't surprising. Jenna always needed to be the one in control. What did she say?" "She said." He paused, visibly uncomfortable. "She said you were not really part of the family anymore. That you'd changed. That you'd made some, choices that made things complicated." Scoff. "What choices?" "That's what I asked. But she wouldn't say. Just kept repeating that you're not someone they talk about anymore. I didn't get it at first, but Elena, I think there's more to this." I narrowed my eyes. "More?" He nodded, then lowered his voice. "I think they're hiding something. And I think your mom is too." There was a pause between us. A thick, humming silence that seemed to stretch like gravity pulling secrets to the surface. Then he added something I didn't expect. "Your name came up at dinner the night before the party," he said. "I asked your mom if you were coming. I thought maybe you were just running late or something. But when I said your name, everyone got tense. Like the air just changed. And your mom," she smiled and said, "Let's not ruin the night with that conversation." My jaw tightened. "I think," Liam said slowly, "they've been lying to you for a long time. About why they push you away. It's not random. It's intentional." I stared at him for a long second. Then said, "Why are you telling me all this?" His eyes dropped to the table. "Because I think you deserve to know," he said. "And also, because I think I'm falling in love with the wrong sister." Silence. Actual heart-stopping silence. I blinked. Once. I wasn't even sure I'd heard him correctly. Was this some kind of twisted joke? Test. I'm sorry, what? He looked panicked immediately. I didn't mean to say it like that. I didn't plan it, okay? But I see you now, Elena. The way you carry yourself. The way people respect you. You're amazing. And they've treated you like trash for no reason. I can't unsee that. I stood up. Not because I was angry, but because something inside me cracked wide open. Not from his confession, but from the realization that my family hadn't just excluded me. They tried to erase me. And now, the truth was starting to leak out. I didn't respond to his confession. Not directly. I simply said, "Thank you for telling me what they wouldn't." I needed that. I left him sitting there, conflicted, guilty, and maybe a little relieved. But me. I wasn't relieved. I was ready. The next day, I drove to my childhood home. Not because I wanted to mend anything, but because I wanted to see it for myself, to look into their eyes and ask, why? When I pulled into the driveway, my sister was there, watering Mom's rose bushes like nothing had happened. She looked up when I got out. Her mouth curled into a smirk. "Wow. Look what the cat dragged in." "Hey, Jenna," I said, my voice even. "Can we talk?" She didn't answer right away. Just tapped the watering can against her thigh and said, "If this is about the party, we already told Mom not to invite you." "Why?" "Yes. What did I do that was so unforgivable?" She tilted her head. "You mean besides making us all feel inferior? You walk around like you're better than us, Elena. Always have." I laughed bitterly. "I never said I was better. I just worked hard." "Exactly," she snapped. "You always had to be the overachiever. The golden resume. And now look at you. Yo. Power suit. Big shot." Meanwhile, I had to claw my way into every opportunity. I stared at her. "So this is about jealousy." Her eyes narrowed. "No. This is about balance. You left. You chose your career over family. You don't get to come back now and play victim." I felt like the ground was shifting beneath me. "You pushed me out," I whispered. "You all did." He shrugged. "Maybe. But it's done." I left that house with no intention of ever returning. But that night, Liam texted me again. "Your sister just found out I told you everything," he wrote. "She's furious. She said something strange. That your mom made a choice years ago. That it's all tied to your dad's will." The will. That was the first time I heard it mentioned in years. And suddenly the distance they'd created, the lies, the cold shoulders, the exile from family, didn't feel random anymore. It felt calculated. If you've ever uncovered a family lie so deep it made you question everything, drop a comment. I'm serious. Sometimes the worst betrayal doesn't come from strangers. Comes from those who raised you. And if you're still watching, you'll want to stick around. Because what was in that will? It blew everything apart. I couldn't sleep that night. Liam's text about the will had unsettled something deep in my bones. All those years I'd spent convincing myself my family's coldness was just emotional distance, just some people grow apart, suddenly started unraveling into something darker, something intentional. I sat on my couch, phone glowing in my hand, rereading the words again and again. She said something strange. That your mom made a choice years ago. That it's all tied to your dad's will. What choice? And why had no one ever told me anything about a will? I was 16 when Dad died. Grieving. And nobody ever explained any legal matters to me. Not Jenna. Not Mom. The days after his funeral were a blur of whispered phone calls and closed doors. I just assumed my dad hadn't left much behind. Maybe some insurance, maybe the house. But no one asked for my signature. No one asked anything. Now it made sense. They never asked because they didn't want me to know. So, I did what I always do when I smell a cover-up. I started digging. The next morning, I called an old friend of my father's, Mr. Preston, his former attorney. He'd always been kind to me when I was a kid. Quiet, serious, and the kind of man who always remembered your birthday. "Mr. Preston," I said carefully, I was wondering if you still had any files about my father's will. I'm just trying to understand some things. There was a long pause on the other end. Elena, he said finally, I'm surprised you're asking. Your mother assured me years ago that you didn't want anything to do with the estate. My breath caught. She said what? She told me you declined your share. That you were going to college and didn't want the responsibility. That you signed a waiver. I went cold. I never signed anything. I wasn't even told there was anything. There was silence again, longer this time. Do you remember if I was legally a minor at the time? Yes. You were. Which is why your mother had to act on your behalf. But if what you're saying is true, then Elena, you may have been deliberately misled. It was like the room tilted sideways. I asked him to send me a copy of the original will. He agreed. And when it arrived in my inbox hours later, I stared at it in disbelief. My dad had left half of everything to me. Not just money. Not just his 401k or the house. But also his shares in a quiet little investment fund he'd started with a friend. That fund. It had exploded in value years later. The same fund that partially launched my career when I joined the firm and unknowingly built on top of his foundation. He trusted me, even as a teenager, even though I never knew. And my mother had erased that truth. I didn't cry, but my hands shook. My father had seen me, had believed in me, had given me a future, and my mother had lied. I paced the apartment for a long time. Everything in me screamed to confront her, to drive to that house, hold the will in her face, and demand an answer. But something told me that wouldn't be enough. So I made a plan. The next week, I invited Liam to dinner. Not because I had feelings for him, though I won't lie, part of me was flattered by his honesty, but because I needed him to confirm something. He showed up nervous, holding takeout, eyes darting like a man carrying a secret. And to his credit, he didn't make it about him. I want to help, he said. Even if it makes things messy with Jenna. It already is messy, I replied. Over dinner I asked, do you think Jenna knows about the will? He hesitated, then said, she mentioned once that there was an agreement between your mom and the lawyer. I didn't know what that meant at the time. But yeah, think she knows. Or at least suspects. My stomach tightened. I asked him something else, something riskier. Would you be willing to talk to her? Record a conversation. I just need confirmation that she and Mom kept this from me on purpose. He looked unsure. You want me to spy on her? No, I said. I want you to give her a chance to tell the truth. A few nights later, he did exactly that. He invited her to his place, turned on voice memos, and casually brought up the topic of inheritance. He took the bait. According to the recording, Jenna said, Elena doesn't need that money. He turned out fine. Mom didn't do anything wrong. She just made sure it went where it would do more good. Like to you? Liam asked. She's always acted like she was better than us, Jenna said bitterly. So yeah, maybe I deserved something too. That was it. Proof. I had it all. The documents, the motive, the confession. And yet, part of me still hesitated. What was justice supposed to look like here? Revenge. Public exposure. A lawsuit. But something else happened that same week. Something that pushed me over the edge. A neighbor of my mom's, Mrs. Dunley, who'd lived next door since I was 10, messaged me on Facebook. She said, I heard what happened with your dad's will. I always wondered why you weren't around anymore. Your dad talked about you so proudly. He always said you'd take his place one day. That broke me. Because that was the truth. Not Jenna's version. Not Mom's version. My dad's. He believed I could lead. So I decided it was time to show them all just how right he was. But before I tell you what I did next, let me ask you something. If you found out your family stole your inheritance and lied for over a decade, what would you do? Would you sue them? Expose them? Or would you take your power back another way? Comment below. I really want to know. Because what I did next, well, it wasn't petty. It was surgical. And it started with one unexpected move. At the next family gathering. I didn't grow up wanting revenge. I wanted belonging. I wanted to be seen. To be enough. But when the people who are supposed to love you the most decide to erase you for their convenience, you stop wanting love. You start wanting the truth. And the truth, in my case, was written in black ink on official documents with my name missing from every rightful place. So, yeah, maybe what I did next was a little bold. But it was never about ego. It was about restoration. The opportunity came faster than I expected. My cousin Clara, sweet, neutral Clara, texted me to invite me to her engagement party. She wasn't close to Jenna or my mom, really. She'd always floated in the background of family functions, smiling politely, never picking sides. But somehow, she'd kept in touch with me over the years, occasionally liking my posts or asking about my work in private messages. She wrote, "Hey, I know things are tense, but I'd really love for you to come to my engagement party. No drama, I promise. I just want you there." Said yes, not because I wanted to cause a scene, but because it was time. Time they saw me not as the ghost in the corner, but as the woman I had become. I didn't show up in a designer dress. I didn't make a grand entrance. But I did walk in with Liam. Yes, that Liam. And I know what you're thinking. But it wasn't romantic. At least not in that moment. It was strategic. He asked if he could stand by my side that day. Said he was done pretending. Said he wanted to face Jenna and Mom with me. So we went together. The party was held in a rented barn-turned-event space just outside Milwaukee. Fairy lights, catered food, acoustic music. Pinterest perfect. As soon as we stepped in, heads turned. Whispers followed. I caught Jenna near the bar, her glass mid-air, eyes locking onto Liam first, then sliding to me. And her smile dropped. She stormed over within seconds. "What the hell are you doing here?" she hissed. "With him." I stayed calm. "I was invited." Her eyes flicked to Liam. "Seriously?" He nodded. "I wanted to be here. With her." She clenched her jaw, looked like she was about to explode, but she couldn't. Not with our entire extended family watching, drinks in hand, pretending not to eavesdrop. I leaned in and whispered just loud enough. "I know about the will, Jenna. I know everything." She went pale. Visibly. "I have the documents. The recording. The signatures. All of it." "You wouldn't dare," she hissed. "Wouldn't I?" I smiled softly. "Why don't we ask Mom?" I didn't mean to cause a scene, truly. But when Mom walked by moments later and saw the three of us standing there, Liam looking uncomfortable, Jenna seething, and me calm, she froze. "Elena," she said with tight lips. "What are you doing here?" "I came to support Clara," I said lightly. "But since you're here, I thought maybe we could talk about Dad's will." The silence that followed. It was instant and total. I could actually hear someone put down a drink. Mom tried to keep her composure. "That's not appropriate here." "I agree," I said, pulling an envelope from my clutch. "That's why I brought this for you. Copy. For when you're ready." I handed it to her, neatly sealed, marked with a yellow post-it note that said, "We need to talk." Then I smiled, kissed Clara on the cheek, and left. It wasn't a dramatic exit. It was measured, controlled. It was everything they hadn't allowed me to be before. The next day, Mom showed up at my office. No warning. No call. My receptionist buzzed me. "There's a Mrs. Moore here to see you. She says it's urgent." I almost didn't let her in. But I did. She walked in slowly, not with the posture of a furious matriarch, but a woman carrying something heavy for far too long. She didn't sit. She just said, "You weren't supposed to find out." I stared at her. "But I did." She swallowed hard. "Your father. He left that to you because he believed in you. I knew you were too young to handle it then. You could have told me when I turned 18. Or 21. Or any time after." She nodded. "I know." I stood up. "Why didn't you?" She closed her eyes for a second. "Because I was afraid you'd leave us completely. You were always the one with ambition. The one who could make it. Jenna, she needed support. I didn't want her to feel like a failure. And what about me? Asked voice rising. What did I get to feel? Her lip trembled. You got strength, she whispered. You built a life on your own. I thought maybe that meant I made the right choice. I shook my head. You didn't. You made a selfish one. We stood in silence. The mother and daughter we used to be. Separated by 1,000 buried truths. Finally she asked, what are you going to do with the truth? I looked her straight in the eye. I'm going to live it. Because I didn't need their validation anymore. I had the truth. And I had power. Before she left, I said something I hadn't planned to say. You know what hurt the most? He paused in the doorway. It wasn't the money. Or the silence. It was the birthday. You could have had me there. You chose not to. Her shoulders dropped. I'm sorry. And for the first time in years, I believed her. But forgiveness would take time. I'm still healing. Still processing. But let me tell you this. Sometimes the deepest power is not in revenge. It's in knowing. In walking into a room and not needing permission to exist anymore. That day at the engagement party, Liam leaned over and whispered in my ear. Now they know who you are. Yeah, they do. But hey, before I share what happened next, I want to ask you something. If someone in your family betrayed you, but showed up years later saying, I did it for your own good, would you forgive them? Or walk away? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to know how strong your boundaries are. Because now, you'll see what I chose when the apology turned into something unexpected. I always thought forgiveness would come with some grand emotional release. Like maybe once the truth came out I'd cry it out, make peace, and we'd all sit around some table, slightly awkward but healed. But healing? It doesn't come in a neat little bow. Comes in the form of emails you don't answer, phone calls you ignore, and boundaries you draw with trembling hands that get steadier over time. After Mom left my office that day, she sent a string of texts. First they were apologetic, then nostalgic, then a little manipulative. You were always your father's favorite. We didn't mean to hurt you. Don't punish us for one bad decision. Family is complicated, Elena. Yeah, no kidding. I didn't reply. But I did keep talking to Liam. Not in the romantic way, not yet. It was more like we'd found ourselves on the same broken road. And for once, I wasn't walking it alone. He told me Jenna had packed a bag and stormed out after the engagement party. She wasn't answering his calls. She's furious, he said. Said I betrayed her. That I ruined everything. She did that on her own, I replied. But the truth is I did feel for her, just a little. Because I saw it clearly now. She'd been Mom's crutch all these years. And I was the shadow they tried to forget. But shadows grow long eventually. Especially when you try to hide them. A few days later I received a letter in the mail. Yes, an actual letter, from my Aunt Ramona. She was my dad's sister, someone I hadn't seen in at least 10 years. She lived in Arizona now. The letter was short. Dear Elena, I just wanted to say your father would be proud. I heard about what happened, and though I don't have the details, I always knew you'd rise above it. Your mom made choices I disagreed with back then. But I kept quiet. Maybe that was wrong of me. I'm glad the truth finally found you. If you ever want to visit, my door is always open. Love. Aunt Ramona. I sat with that letter in my lap for a long time. Maybe there were pieces of my family still worth reconnecting with. Maybe not everyone had turned their back on me. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I'd convinced myself. But the moment that really shifted everything came one afternoon about 2 weeks later. I was walking through the lobby of my firm on the way to a strategy session, when my assistant flagged me down. There's someone waiting in the boardroom, she said. Did you schedule a last-minute meeting? I shook my head. With who? She just shrugged. He said you'd want to see him. I walked in confused. And stopped cold. It was my uncle, my dad's brother, James Moore. I hadn't seen him since the funeral. He stood slowly, older than I remembered, but just as tall. He looked at me with tired eyes and said, "You look just like him, you know." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Why are you here?" He pulled a folder from his coat. "I have something you need to see. Something your father gave me before he passed." I stared. "What is it?" He slid the folder across the table. Inside were old handwritten notes, scanned documents, and a letter from my dad, dated 2 weeks before his death. It was addressed to me. "Elena, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and I didn't get to say what I wanted to. You've always been strong. I see you even when they don't. I know your mother. I know how easily she bends things to keep the peace. If she tells you I left you nothing, don't believe it. I've made arrangements for you. I believe in what you're going to become. I believe you'll make a difference. Don't shrink for anyone. Love, Dad." I read that letter 5 times, each word sinking deeper into the cracks they had left in me. This was the truth. This was all I had ever needed. I looked at my uncle, tears in my eyes for the first time in years. "Why didn't you come forward before?" He sighed. "I thought you knew. Your mother told everyone you wanted to cut ties, that you were angry that you'd left by choice. I should have known better." I nodded slowly. This was bigger than I thought. It wasn't just my mom and Jenna. It was a rewritten narrative. One I hadn't even known I was starring in. But not anymore. I stood up, walked around the table and hugged him. A real hug. Heavy one. One that said, "Thank you for still believing in me, even when I didn't know you were out there." That night I posted a photo. It was simple. Just my dad's letter, folded in my lap, with the caption, "You didn't lose me. You just never looked hard enough. But I'm right here now. And I'm not going anywhere." The likes rolled in. But it wasn't about validation anymore. It was about standing in the truth. Hey, if you've ever felt like someone tried to rewrite your story without your permission, take it back. You get to decide who you are. You get to reclaim your place. Drop a red heart in the comments if you've ever been ghosted by your own blood and came back stronger. And if you're still here, wait until you hear what I did next. Because in now, I finally revealed everything, and not just to my family, to the entire company. And that's when the power really shifted. I always believed that some stories should stay private. That certain truths were better whispered between closed doors than spoken into microphones. But when someone tries to bury you quietly, sometimes the only way to survive is to speak louder. So I decided to speak. Not with spite. Not with revenge. But with purpose. You see, my company, More Strategies, hosts an annual leadership conference. It's our biggest event of the year. Staff fly in from across the country, clients bring their investors, and we do everything from panel discussions to mentorship spotlights. And this year, I was the keynote speaker. I'd written my speech weeks in advance. It was full of the usual things. Growth, innovation, resilience. Polished stuff. But after receiving my father's letter and discovering how deeply my family had tried to silence me, I rewrote the whole thing. I didn't tell anyone, not even my assistant. And when I stepped onto that stage, mic clipped to my blazer, lights warming my skin, I wasn't Elena Moore the CEO. I was Elena Moore the daughter who had survived the rewrite. I started slow. 10 years ago, I said, I believed the only way to succeed was to play small, to be agreeable, to stay quiet. Because the louder I got, the more my family reminded me I was too much, too ambitious, too independent, too difficult to love. The room was silent. But let me tell you something, I continued, my voice steady. When your voice makes people uncomfortable, it's usually because they benefit from your silence. People leaned forward in their seats. My father believed in me. Even when others didn't. Even when I didn't believe in myself. He left behind more than money. He left a legacy. One that someone tried to erase. That's when I pulled the letter from my folder. I read the first paragraph aloud. My hands didn't shake this time. And when I looked up, I wasn't expecting the tear tracks on the faces in the front row. Or the man in the back who stood up to clap before I even finished. I ended with this. So if you've ever been made to feel like you don't belong at the table, build your own table. Invite those who never made you question your worth. And leave a seat open for the version of you that never gave up. The applause was thunderous. But what happened after? That was louder. People came up to me after the conference crying, hugging me, saying things like, "That was the most honest speech I've ever heard from someone in your position. You said the thing I've been afraid to say my whole life. I thought I was the only one who got cut off by my family for wanting more." It wasn't just a speech. It was a reckoning. And guess who watched the live stream? Jenna. I know because she texted me later that night. "Nice performance. Want to tell everyone the rest of the story too?" I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "You mean the part where you lied about the will, took my share, and let Mom do it because you were afraid to live in my shadow?" She didn't respond. But someone else did. The next morning my HR director forwarded me an email. It was from a new potential client, a private equity group based out of Chicago. They wrote, "We were incredibly moved by Ms. Moore's speech. It was raw, elegant, and courageous. We'd like to move forward with more strategies managing our entire portfolio. It was our biggest contract to date. Millions. Legacy money. And here's the real twist. One of the partners in that firm. He used to work with my dad back in the early days. He called personally to tell me, 'Your father would be proud. He always said you'd change everything.'" I sat in my office after that call, phone in one hand, coffee untouched. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I wasn't proving anything to anyone. I was building now. And the next person to show up was Mom. Again. But this time she brought something. She asked to meet me at a small cafe, one I used to go to in high school when I needed to think. When I arrived, she was already there, older than I remembered, a little slumped, like the weight of her decisions had finally settled into her bones. She slid a manila envelope across the table. "What's this?" I asked. She looked me in the eye for the first time in months. "It's the paperwork," she said. "Your half. Sign back over to you. The way it always should have been." I didn't open it. I just stared at her. "Why now?" I asked. She sighed. "Because I watched your speech. And I realized, you're not just stronger than I gave you credit for. You're better than me. And I'm tired of pretending you're not." I didn't know what to say. For the first time in our lives, my mother and I were sitting across from each other with nothing left to hide. I didn't forgive her that day. Not completely. But I did thank her. Because returning what she stole, that was her first real act of love. And that night I went home, opened the envelope and cried. Not because of the money, but because I had finally won. Not in the revenge kind of way, but in the way that means, you survived them, you outgrew them, and you still chose grace over bitterness. Before I close this part, let me say something from the realist part of me. If you've ever felt cast aside, overlooked, or deliberately made small, rink, you're not too much. You are just enough to shake the room. And if you've made it this far in my story, like this video, share it with someone who needs it and tell me in the comments. Have you ever taken your power back in a way that shocked everyone? Because in this part, we're finally getting into the final family gathering, where the truth doesn't just leak, it erupts. There's something eerie about the quiet that comes right after you reclaim your voice. It's not peace exactly. It's the hush of everyone recalculating who you are now, and whether they're still allowed to treat you the same. That's where I was. After the conference, after the contract, after my mom handed me the paperwork. The silence from Jenna was deafening. No rage text, no cryptic subtweets, no screaming voicemails. Just nothing. Until the family dinner. The same annual dinner I hadn't been invited to in years. The one I'd heard about through third cousins and awkward social media posts of store-bought sheet cake and mismatched paper plates. But this year, Clara, sweet, brave Clara, called me herself. Elena, I know it might be uncomfortable, she said. But we all want you there. Or at least I do. I hesitated. Do they know you invited me? They do now. I smiled at the floor. You realize this is going to cause a scene, right? Her voice dropped to a whisper. Then let it. So I went. Not to burn bridges, but to walk across them like a woman who owns her story now. The dinner was at my aunt's house, a sprawling old place with chipped paint and warm lighting. The kind of place that holds 10 years of tension in its wallpaper. I arrived early. Why? Because the version of me they remember, the one who tiptoed into rooms and apologized for her ambition, she doesn't exist anymore. So I walked in, heels clicking on the hardwood, chin high. First face I saw, Jenna. She was standing in the kitchen, refilling a tray of deviled eggs. She froze when she saw me. Elena, she said like my name was sour in her mouth. Jenna, I nodded. Love the dress. It was the same one she wore to the engagement party. Bold choice. I didn't think you'd show, she said, turning back to the tray. Smiled. I didn't think you'd stay after your boyfriend became my biggest client. Her hand trembled slightly. She set the tray down harder than necessary. I'm surprised you still talk to him, she said. After everything. I looked her straight in the eye. He told the truth. That's more than I can say for you. Before she could reply, Mom appeared behind her. And to my shock, she hugged me. Not a tight hug. Not a motherly one. But enough to draw gasps from two aunts nearby. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. Thanks for inviting me, I lied. The table was set for 15. But only one seat had a folded card with a title underneath the name. Elena Moore, partner, More Strategies. Someone, Clara no doubt, had made a point. Jenna sat 3 seats down, lips thin, her fork never quite landing on her plate. Conversation danced around me like I wasn't there. Until Uncle Pete, always the instigator, decided to stir the pot. So Elena, he said halfway through his second beer. You're the boss now, huh? He nodded. I guess I always was. People just didn't know it yet. Mom coughed into her napkin. But Pete kept going. Must be a little awkward though. You know, working so closely with Jenna's ex. A silence fell over the table. I tilted my head calm. You mean Liam? The man who came forward with the truth when no one else would. Jenna slammed her fork down. Oh please. He didn't do it out of honesty. He did it because he wanted to feel superior. No, I said, my voice even. He did it because you were lying. And he refused to lie for you. Everyone stared. A cousin choked on her drink. Continued. Let's not pretend the truth is a matter of opinion. Dad left me half. Mom stole it. You knew. You helped. And you were okay with that. Until I wasn't. Clara spoke up from the end. She's right. More silence. And then. My Aunt Ramona, the one who wrote me the letter, stood up, raised her glass and said, to the only one in this family brave enough to turn betrayal into legacy. And people clapped. Not all of them. But enough. Jenna stood. I'm not staying for this. She grabbed her bag. And just before storming out, Liam walked in. That Liam. Late, as always, hair tousled, looking like a man who'd driven way too fast to make it. He froze when he saw her. Jenna. She pushed past him. And he turned to me. Sorry I'm late, he said, breathless. I came straight from the airport. That pitch in San Diego. We landed it. Cheers erupted from the table. Even Mom smiled faintly. Then Liam walked over, leaned down and whispered in my ear, just loud enough for everyone to hear. You know what the investors called you today? Boss. Visionary. Leader. And the smartest person in the room. Smiled. And for once, not a single person at that table could say otherwise. But let me ask you something. If your family had tried to erase you, then watched the whole room stand and applaud your return, what would you do next? Would you forgive them? There are some doors you're never meant to open again. But there's something they never tell you. Once you've found your voice, Silence no longer fits. And once you've seen the truth, you can't unsee it. The next chapter of this mess started with an email. One line. No greeting. No context. Family meeting. Saturday. 3 p.m. Aunt Ramona's house. Sent by my cousin Daniel. No sissy. No, please confirm. No explanation of the agenda. I almost laughed when I saw it. It was the same exact format as the email they sent 3 years ago, the one I wasn't copied on. You know, the meeting where they discussed dividing the family land, assets from Grandma's estate, and of course, who would be managing things now that most of the older generation had either passed or checked out. And guess who wasn't in the room? Me. Back then I found out about it days later. I had called Daniel about a holiday recipe, and he let it slip. Oh, you didn't hear. We had a big meeting. Voted on everything. Your name came up, but, well, we figured you wouldn't be interested. I remembered how I smiled through the phone, pretending it didn't sting. But now I wasn't asking for a seat. I was taking it. So I showed up. Saturday. 2:57 p.m. Wearing a navy pantsuit. No makeup but clear eyes. And a folder in my hand. Not full of legal threats. Not financial reports. Just truth. Aunt Ramona opened the door, surprised but not unhappy. You came. Of course I did, I said. I'm still family, right? She smiled and let me in. I walked into the living room, where everyone was already seated. 12 chairs. 11 occupied. The corner one, slightly pulled back from the circle, was empty. They left a seat. Whether that was for show or guilt, I didn't care. Jenna stared at me like I'd crawled out of her nightmares. Mom looked resigned. Daniel wouldn't make eye contact. Only Clara gave me a little smile. The I told you they'd squirm kind. All right, Uncle Pete grumbled, clearing his throat. We're here to discuss a few things. Property inheritance issues and, well, family roles. There's been tension. Jenna jumped in fast. Some of us have been pulling weight for years. Others just appear when the money starts talking. I didn't blink. You mean when the truth starts talking? She crossed her arms. You're not the only one who's struggled, Elena. Just because Dad left you a few shares and a dusty letter doesn't make you the hero here. No, I said calmly. But forging my signature and keeping me from my inheritance. That makes you the villain. Mom's eyes flicked to Jenna. The silence grew tight. Heavy. I opened my folder. Inside was a timeline. Copies of the will. Liam's transcript recording of Jenna's confession. My father's letter. And a statement from my uncle confirming the documents were authentic. I slid the packet to the center of the coffee table like a final hand in poker. Before we talk roles, I said, let's acknowledge what happened. Daniel picked it up, scanned it, then froze. This is real. He nodded. Every word. Aunt Ramona looked furious, but not at me. You all let this happen. Mom finally spoke. I thought I was protecting everyone. I was wrong. Jenna muttered. You always take her side. No, I said, standing slowly. She's not taking sides. She's just tired of pretending you didn't lie. Jenna stood too. You're not part of this family just because you made a few speeches and got lucky with a client. I stepped forward, calm as ever. I'm part of this family because I am this family. You erased me. I rebuilt myself. Now you have to live with that. Then I pulled the final card. I've purchased the land. Everyone stared. Jenna blinked. What land? The land Grandma left in trust. The one you all voted to split. I bought out 2 of the shareholders last week. Quietly. Legally. Daniel spoke first. That's not possible. It is, I replied. And the 3rd share goes up for sale next month. I'll be bidding. You could hear her world crumble. Clara grinned. Uncle Pete choked on his coffee. And then, for the first time since I was cut out of that family meeting years ago, someone stood and said, Elena should lead this. She's the only one who actually has. It was Aunt Ramona. And everyone, even the skeptics, nodded slowly. Jenna looked around and realized something chilling. She'd lost the room. I didn't gloat. Didn't smirk. I just sat back down and said, if we're going to move forward as a family, then we do it transparently. No secrets. No backdoors. No votes without invites. I don't want control, I want honesty. No one objected. Meeting adjourned. I walked out into the sunlight, the folder still tucked under my arm. I didn't win because I out-yelled them. I won because I let the truth do the talking. But before I leave this part, let me ask you something. What would you do if your family had buried you for years and then acted like nothing happened? Would you expose them like I did? Or walk away without a word? Jenna tries one last move. And this time, it's not about money. It's about Liam. I thought the hardest part was behind me. The stolen inheritance. Public call-out. The family meeting that turned into my quiet coronation. But I was wrong. Because sometimes the people who fear losing power don't fight with money. They fight with memories. It started with a text from Liam. Hey, can we talk? Just that. No emojis. No flirt. Just 4 words. We hadn't spoken much since the family dinner. Work had been busy, and part of me was trying to figure out what he really was to me now. An ally. Friend. Something more. I replied. Sure. You okay? He said he'd stop by after work. When he walked into my apartment that evening, something was off. His eyes were tired, his posture defensive. He held a folded piece of paper in his hand, but didn't give it to me right away. I saw Jenna, he said softly. I didn't move. She showed up at my place. Uninvited. Course she did. She said a lot of things, Elena. Things about the past. About us. I raised an eyebrow. Us. He nodded. She told me she was pregnant once. Back when we were dating. The air drained from my lungs. She said she didn't go through with it. That she never told me because she knew I was already falling for you. Blinked. I didn't even know you back then, I whispered. I know, he said. That's what doesn't make sense. I stood there trying to process what this was. Some kind of last-ditch manipulation. A way to make him feel guilty enough to come back. She's trying to pull you back in, I said quietly. Because if she can't have control over the business or the family, she thinks she can control you. Liam stepped forward, voice low. I didn't come here because I believe her, Elena. I came because I needed to hear your voice after she tried to twist the past. That was the moment it hit me. Jenna wasn't done, not because she loved him, but because she hated that he loved me. Even if we hadn't said it out loud yet. You don't owe her anything, I said. Not your guilt. Not your sympathy. And definitely not your future. He looked at me, eyes stormy. Then what do I owe you? The silence between us was electric. And then I said the scariest thing I'd said in years. Everything she destroyed in you. I want to help rebuild it. But only if you want that too. He closed the distance between us. And kissed me. No fireworks. No background music. Just a quiet, deep connection between 2 people who had been bent by lies, but never broken. He stayed the night. Not in the rushed romantic way, but curled up beside me on the couch, both of us holding the weight of everything we'd survived. And for the first time in years, felt safe. But of course, Jenna wasn't finished. The next day, I received an email from an anonymous account. Subject line. Ask Liam about Chicago. Inside. Blurry photo. It was Liam and Jenna, arms linked, outside a hotel. No timestamp. No context. But just enough poison to plant doubt. I forwarded it to Liam without a word. He called instantly. She's losing it. I don't care, I said. Unless you tell me otherwise, I trust you. He exhaled. It was a conference. 3 years ago. We had to share a hotel car. That's it. I barely spoke to her the entire trip. I believe you, I said. And I did. Because the version of me she tried to manipulate is gone. But part of me wondered, why now? What was she building up to? That night I got the answer. Liam and I were having dinner when my assistant messaged me. Urgent. Jenna just called the office. Said she's filing a claim against the firm. My heart dropped. For what? The next message came seconds later. She's accusing you of unethical conduct. Says your relationship with Liam creates conflict of interest. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because when power slips through their fingers, some people grab at anything. Liam saw the message, then looked at me. Should I resign? That's when I realized how deeply she'd gotten under his skin. No, I said. You're staying exactly where you are. But what if it hurts your name? I leaned forward. Liam, she is the problem. Not you. And not us. He nodded slowly. But I knew what I had to do. The next morning I scheduled a company-wide meeting. I didn't hide from the claim. I addressed it head-on. I want to make something clear, I told the team. Transparency and ethics are the cornerstone of this firm. Liam and I have a history, yes. Personal one. But every decision has been documented. Every deal approved independently. If anyone has concerns, I'm here. No secrets. And do you know what happened? The team clapped. Not out of obligation but solidarity. Because the truth protects you in ways lies never will. That night, I received another anonymous email. Just 3 words. You'll regret this. And I knew it was her. But let me ask you something. If someone tried to burn down everything you've rebuilt, brick by brick, would you stay calm? Or would you finally light a match of your own? You can ignore threats. You can even ignore lies. But when someone goes after the people you care about, not just to hurt you but to destroy what you've built, that's when the game changes. After Jenna's fake ethics complaint failed, I thought she'd disappear quietly. I underestimated her bitterness. Because when people like her lose control, they don't leave the room. They flip the table on their way out. The next blow didn't come through email. Came through my little sister. No, not Jenna. My half-sister. She was 12 years younger than me. Born during what Mom used to call her second chapter. Dad had tried to connect us, but by the time she was old enough to talk, I'd already been labeled too distant, too career-obsessed, and my personal favorite, too American. But I still loved her. Quietly. I sent her birthday gifts. Slipped money into her graduation cards. Even when the rest of the family cut me out, I stayed soft for her. And now, apparently, Jenna had gotten to her. I was in the middle of a board meeting when my phone buzzed. Video message. From my half-sister. When I played it later that night, I sat frozen. She was sitting in her childhood room, eyes glassy, voice shaking. Hi Elena. I don't know if this is true, but Jenna said you used Dad's death to manipulate the company. That he never really left you anything. That you faked the letter. I don't know what to believe anymore. I want to. But she said you're not who you pretend to be. My throat tightened. Because this wasn't just about business anymore. This was about identity. About memory. And the one person I thought had escaped the toxicity was now being dragged into the pit with the rest of them. Called her. No answer. Texted. You don't have to believe me. But I'd never lie about Dad. Ever. Still nothing. Took everything in me not to explode. But Liam, he kept me grounded. She's young, he said. She's scared. And Jenna is twisting the only part of the past she knows. She was supposed to be the clean slate, I whispered. She was the one person I never wanted to lose. And that's when I made the second scariest decision of my life. I decided to show everything. I went public. Not in some dramatic press release. Not with legal statements or a takedown letter. I made a video. Just me sitting at my desk raw. No makeup. No production. No script. Just truth. Hi. My name is Elena Moore. I'm the CEO of Moore Strategies. I'm also the daughter of Thomas Moore, the man who built this company with his bare hands. Some of you know my story. Some of you only know whispers. Here's what's real. My father left me half the company. That fact was hidden, forged, denied. I found out the hard way. Through secrets and silence. But I rebuilt. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove myself right. I included screenshots of the will, a letter, a time-stamped copy of the video Liam recorded of Jenna's confession. I blurred faces where I could, but I didn't hide what happened. Not anymore. Within hours, the video had 700,000 views. Within a day, it hit 1 million. The messages rolled in like a tidal wave. I went through the same thing. Thank you for saying it out loud. I wish I had the courage to do what you did. This just changed the way I see everything about legacy, family, and lies. But there was one message that brought me to my knees. Came from my half-sister. I watched it. Believe you. I'm sorry. That was all. But I held my phone to my chest and cried like I was 5 years old. Because some scars you don't even realize you've been carrying. Until they stop bleeding. Later that night, Liam brought over dinner. I hope this doesn't make your family hate me more, he joked. They already hated you, I smiled. But now at least they're being honest about it. He leaned against the counter. You know what you did, right? What? You didn't just speak up. You dismantled the whole system that made you silent to begin with. I didn't say anything. Because I knew what was coming next. Jenna's last move. The next morning my lawyer called. She's filed a formal lawsuit. For what? Yes. Defamation. Invasion of privacy. She's saying you ruined her career. And blinked. What career? He chuckled. That's not for me to decide. But we'll handle it. This isn't about law, it's about noise. She's trying to rattle you. It didn't rattle me. Focus me. Because I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of her. Not of what people might say. Not of being called too much. But before I close this chapter, let me ask you, if someone tried to rewrite your story, would you fight back publicly? Would you let the world know what was taken from you? Or would you quietly let them win? Tell me below, because in final part, it all comes full circle. Back to my father. Back to the truth. Back to the one final move. That changed everything. The lawsuit didn't scare me. It almost felt predictable. Because when people like Jenna lose control, they don't self-reflect. They self-destruct. And when someone has nothing left to lose, they try to take you down with them. But I had already survived my family's silence. I had rebuilt my name. I had earned love, not just from Liam, but from thousands of strangers who saw my story, believed it, and said, "You weren't crazy. You were right." That was healing. But the real closure, that came with the final envelope. It arrived one quiet Tuesday morning. No warning. No courier. Just a plain manila folder in my office inbox. Inside was a letter. Written by my father. One I had never seen before. It had been kept in a safety deposit box. One I didn't know existed. Under my name, activated only if legal action was ever taken against the company from within the family. It read, "Elena, if you're reading this, then the storm I feared has come. I never wanted to pit you against your blood. But I knew if it came to that, you'd win. Not because you're ruthless, but because you're right. You are the best parts of me and none of the parts that gave up. You lead with your heart. Don't ever stop. And if they come for you, let them. Because they'll never take what matters most." A voice. Name. Your truth. I didn't cry. Breathe. For the first time in years I felt completely and fully seen. I met Jenna in court. She showed up in a tight blazer and cold eyes. But she didn't look like a villain anymore. She looked lost. The judge dismissed the case before it ever reached trial. Why? Because her claims were based on personal resentment, not legal merit. Translation: the truth had already won. And now, I didn't press charges. Didn't shame her publicly. Didn't humiliate her on social media. I walked out of the courthouse. Liam's hand in mine. My name intact. My story complete. Months later, I got a message from my half-sister. "I want to work for you. Learn from you. I want to be the kind of woman you are." Hired her. Because the cycle ends when we choose growth over revenge. But don't get me wrong. Revenge doesn't always look like fire. Sometimes it looks like flourishing. Now listen. If you've been here for this whole story, really sat with it, then I already know something about you. You're not here just for drama. You're here because part of you has lived it too. So let me say, this is me, Elena. Not the CEO, not the voiceover narrator. Just a woman who rebuilt herself from betrayal. Only the grown-ups hit that subscribe button. The ones who want more than fake fairy tales. The ones who are ready for deeper, wilder, and realer stories. The kind of stories that heal while they burn. Because this was just the beginning. You think this was revenge. What's coming next will leave you speechless. So hit that subscribe button like you mean it. And never, ever let them write your ending for you.